Hey everybody, this is Gil Gregg from dutycat.com, and today here we have two 1/72nd scale space shuttles, and we're going to build these things concurrently, side by side, and kind of compare them, and then we're going to see if we can do something a little bit special with both. On the left here is the Monogram space shuttle stack. This is a recent re-release, so it includes the external tank and the boosters. For a long time, these were difficult to get a hold of and commanded ridiculously high prices on eBay, but you can get one now for about probably $70 if you get online. And then here is the recent re-release of the Revell space shuttle. This is actually a Revell Germany boxing. Has a very, very nice decal sheet. I think this probably goes for about $45 online. So we're going to build them up both. They're both very different kits, and kind of compare them, see what we got. Okay, so first I wanted to show you the decal sheets. This is a decal sheet for the Revell of Germany boxing. As you can see, it's pretty extensive. It's got a lot of stuff on here. It's going to really make a difference. What it does not have, however, is the Columbia or the Challenger. They chose to go with the three operational orbiters, Discovery, Atlantis, and Endeavour. So if you want to build Challenger or Columbia, this sheet's not going to get you quite there. It'll get you everything you need to build one of these last three operational shuttles. It also does not include the original markings with the so-called worm livery, NASA worm logos. So again, if you're looking to build an earlier shuttle, then this is not going to get you everything you need. But it does give you most of what you need. On the other hand, this one here is the Monogram kit decals. And what you do have on here, you have Challenger. I actually have all the shuttles on here, and you do have the worm logo that I was referring to. But you don't have a lot of the decals that show where the different types of tiles and patterns and whatnot are. So this is going to get you your basic markings, but it's not going to get you nearly the kind of detail in terms of the overall orbiter as the Revell of Germany sheet. If you combine both of these decal sheets onto one kit, then that would certainly get you pretty much everything you need. So I've already started some basic construction here of the fuselage halves for both these kits. The one that's closest to us here without the tail on it, that is the Monogram fuselage, and the one that's farthest away is the Revell with the tail. A couple of things I want to point out. First of all, this plastic on the Monogram one is considerably thinner than on the Revell one, so much so that I felt it necessary to put some styrene strip along the bottom to try to give it a little bit more structural integrity. If you go over to the Revell kit, it is considerably stronger. I left it open in the rear because we have to insert the payload bay, and you can't bring the payload bay in directly from the top. It has to come in from the side or from the back using a split method that I have here. Here are the Revell and Monogram nose sections side by side, and you should notice something right away. That is that the Monogram windows are much larger than the Revell windows. Unfortunately, they are too large, and they're going to have to be dealt with in some phase of the construction process, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. The other thing you should notice right away is that the orbital maneuvering thrusters on the Revell kit have significant relief here, and in comparison to the Monogram one, and also that you have this tile represented here. Now this is good and bad. We'll talk a little bit more about the tile later and how we're going to work with that. The Monogram shuttle has no tile whatsoever, nothing here at all, so it's up to the modeler to figure out how they're going to fix that issue. Also, the orbital maneuvering thrusters have very little relief, and this may be okay if you're doing a stack, because these were covered more or less during the launch and came off afterwards. But if you're doing an after landing or an orbit configuration, then they're going to have to be worked on a little bit. The other thing I find interesting is if you look in here, the Monogram was chosen to give you an R for the right and an L for the left side of the fuselages, and I just think that's kind of funny because, you know, I don't think we could figure this out, you know, but nonetheless they put that in there. Here are the two payload bays side by side, the Monogram on the bottom and the Revell on top. Just from what I've seen online, I think the Revell one is a little more accurate, especially with this ribbing along the bottom. And the Monogram one may be more accurate along the sides, but it doesn't show the ribbing on the bottom at all. And that may be because they were counting on you putting in the payload package. And if that were the case, then everything would be covered, including this seam at the bottom, because the Monogram kit comes with two parts, two halves, and you would have to eliminate this seam or cover it somehow. Whereas the Revell one, clearly doesn't. Just has the main unit here and the two end caps. The reason the end cap is not on this one, on the Monogram one, is it needs to be entered, actually put into the shuttle body itself, and then this goes in. Whereas this has to be attached before you actually put it in the Revell shuttle. Okay, so here's the Monogram external fuel tank. Consists of two halves and a nose cone. If you look close here, it has the texture that you see on the real thing. The problem here is that when you put these two halves together and you fill the seam, you're going to destroy a lot of this texture. So I've got a plan to fix that situation, which I'll talk about a little bit later. The other thing I wanted to mention is that these two halves are pretty much identical, and if you look at the instructions, it tells you to cut out these little locating holes in both halves, and I was a little bit suspicious about that because I thought that perhaps the locating holes were for the external plumbing on the tank, which is only on one side, not on both. So I went through the instructions, and sure enough, that's the case. There isn't anything you're going to put into both sides of the tank. So I went ahead and just drilled some holes, some guide holes on one side, and we're going to leave the other side covered, which I think is the intention to begin with. And mold these things identical, so if we cut out one side and not the other. But the instructions, whoever did the instructions didn't get the memo on that one. Here's the external fuel tank. I've taped off the seams, and in this case used Squadron white putty. And I'll pull the tape off and sand that down. Probably have to do a few reapplications of putty. Here are the solid rocket boosters. They're already glued together here. And I'm going to have to put the nose cones on and then do the seams the same way I did the external. Okay, so here's the the external fuel tank. And I taped it off and did the Squadron putty along the seams. So I'm just removing now the tape, and just to show you what a nice technique this is, because it pretty much constricts your putty to the area of the seam, and that prevents you from destroying a lot of adjacent surface detail. Now, in this particular case, it's not going to matter a whole lot because of what I'm going to do with this tank later on, but generally speaking, it's a good idea to use this technique. Some people, and I will do this too, for small seams, I will take the thinner and put it in and make it a kind of a paste and just kind of paint it on. And that's an even more advanced technique than this. But this is a very, very big piece, and using the technique of paste and painting it on would take quite a while. And I don't know that it would really give us any significant advantages with what we're trying to do here. Okay. There we go. Got it. So the more your putty goes on the tape, the less you actually have to worry about sanding it off. So if you're careful with this, you know, then it generally comes off okay. If you're in a hurry, sometimes it'll actually take some of the putty away, and you'll have to reapply. There are going to be, any job this large is going to have areas you're going to have to go back and touch up anyway. So there's really no way around that, but at least we've got ourselves a good start. Very good. So I've been working on this external tank for the Monogram stack. It actually comes in 4 parts: 2 halves of the tank body itself, a nose cone, and a bottom portion. And as you can see, the 2 halves didn't go together too well on the ends, and the putty work in the middle was pretty easy. But here on the ends, you can see that I had to do a lot of feathering to get this to fit. And in hindsight, if I had perhaps cut out this portion here on both ends of the tank, I might have had the flexibility to work with these and get it to fit a little bit better. But I didn't do that. Hindsight's 20/20 a lot of times in model building. So now we're faced with a situation where we've got this very nice simulated texture. Whether or not it's completely accurate or not, it's another story. But it's a very nice simulated texture which we've largely puttied over, simply because the tank halves don't match up very well. So this goes to show you where one part of the engineering process is well done and the other is not. So now what do we do? Well, really you have a couple of choices. One choice would be to try to somehow match the texture of the tank with some sort of coating on this putty, maybe a thin layer putty with something to try to texture it. Or we can sand the whole thing down a bit and then spray over a textured paint, which is probably what I'm going to do here. Matching this is going to be very, very difficult to do. So just one of the things you have to overcome. I left off the bottom because I felt it would be easier to work the seams in the tank with this off. But now we're looking at it and you can see the texture very well on this. But now that we're looking at it, it gives me an opportunity to point out something to you. Usually when you have molded seams, you have molded parts, you have seams where the mold is split. And I've already removed some of these, but generally speaking, you can usually see them on the side of parts. And you have to kind of remove those, or else it's obvious it's a molded part. You can see maybe one in there. And usually the easiest way to do it is just with the back end of an X-Acto knife, or a sanding stick, or a file. And since the file is one of the options, that gives me an opportunity to bring out a product that some of you may have seen, maybe some of you haven't. This is the typical rat tail file that a model would usually use, and that might work here, but not as well as what I have here. These are some microfiles, and you can get these from a number of sources. I think these were from testers. They're kind of expensive. 3 files, I think I paid $10 or $12 for them. But I want to point out the difference in the sizes. It's a regular standard rat tail file on the left that you can find in any hobby shop for 99 cents or so, and then here's the micro file on the right. So what this enables me to do, the set actually comes with a round file, a square, and a half round. What this enables me to do is actually get in between these little tight spaces that might be difficult in another way. So just a little thing that helps you out.